I used to believe that a parent's love was unconditional until the day I overheard my son, Marcus, on a conference call in his home office, describe me as financial dead weight to his business partners. That Tuesday afternoon, I had driven to his upscale Brentwood apartment like I did twice a week, carrying homemade lasagna and fresh sourdough bread I'd baked that morning. The 5-bedroom penthouse, with its floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Los Angeles, was a testament to what he liked to call his entrepreneurial genius, though I knew the truth behind every polished marble tile and designer furniture piece. Yeah, my old man still thinks he's relevant, Marcus's voice carried through the partially open door as I set the food containers on the granite kitchen counter. He shows up with his little care packages like we're still living in the 90s. Honestly, dealing with him is like carrying financial dead weight, always talking about the value of hard work while I'm closing million-dollar deals. I froze, my hand still on the container lid. The laughter that followed from the speakerphone felt like ice water down my spine. At least he's not asking for money, right? An unfamiliar voice joked. Oh, he wouldn't dare, Marcus replied, his tone dripping with condescension. He's too proud for that. Still drives that ancient Toyota Camry and shops at discount stores. It's actually embarrassing when he shows up at company events. I stood there in his designer kitchen, looking down at my worn work boots and faded jeans. The same clothes I'd worn while building the very foundation that made his success possible. My hands, calloused from decades of construction work and late-night side jobs, trembled slightly as I quietly closed the food containers. Frank, you still there? My son's business partner's voice crackled through the speaker. What about that expansion loan? Everything set for next week? All good, Marcus responded confidently. The bank's approved everything. We're looking at a $2.5 million credit line. Should have the funds by Monday. I knew that loan. I knew it better than Marcus did because I was the one who had quietly co-signed it, using my construction company as collateral, the company I'd built from nothing over 35 years. The same company that had put Marcus through private school, Stanford University, and funded his first 3 failed startups before this current venture took off. I left the food on the counter and walked out without announcing myself. As I drove home in my ancient Camry, I thought about all the sacrifices my late wife, Elena, and I had made. The vacations we never took, the house renovations we postponed, the retirement funds we dipped into. Also, Marcus could have opportunities we never dreamed of. That evening, I sat in my modest 3-bedroom house in Pasadena, the one Elena and I bought in 1985, staring at the loan documents spread across my dining table. Premier Tech Innovations, Marcus's company, needed this expansion to break into the European market. Without my signature and collateral, the bank would have never approved such a large sum for a company that, despite its flashy presentation, was only 3 years old. I picked up my phone and scrolled through our recent text messages. Dad, running late for dinner. Can we reschedule? Dad, can't make it to the house this weekend. Big presentation Monday. Dad, thanks for the food, but please text before coming over next time. Each message felt different now, tainted by the words, financial dead weight. I opened my laptop and logged into my business banking portal. Donovan Construction had been my life's work. Started with just a pickup truck and a toolbox, it now employed 45 people and had an annual revenue of $12 million. Not tech startup impressive, but solid, reliable, and built on reputation and hard work. The co-signed loan documents stared back at me from the screen. With 3 clicks, I could request a cancellation since the funds hadn't been dispersed yet. My finger hovered over the mouse. My phone buzzed. A text from Marcus. Dad, saw you dropped off food. Thanks. BTW might need you to come to an investor dinner Thursday. They like the family business legacy angle. Wear something presentable? I set the phone down without responding and looked at the framed photo on my mantle, Elena and me at Marcus's college graduation. She'd been so proud, tears streaming down her face as she adjusted his cap. "Our boy's going to change the world." "Frank," she'd whispered. If only she could see him now. The next morning, I made the 20-minute drive to Wells Fargo's commercial banking center in downtown LA. My relationship manager, Patricia Nguyen, had handled my accounts for 15 years. She stood up when she saw me enter, concern crossing her face. "Frank, I wasn't expecting you today. Everything okay with the loan processing?" I sat down across from her desk, my hands folded calmly. "Actually, Patricia, I need to discuss that loan, the one for Premier Tech Innovations. Of course, the disbursement is scheduled for Monday. Your collateral cleared, and with Donovan Construction standing, I want to cancel it." She blinked, her professional smile faltering. "Cancel? But Frank, we're 3 days from disbursement. Your son's company is no longer my concern," I finished quietly. "I'm withdrawing my co-signature and removing my company as collateral." Patricia leaned back, studying me. "This is highly unusual. May I ask why? Is there something about Premier Tech's financials we should know?" I shook my head. "The company's fine. This is personal." She typed something into her computer, frowning at the screen. "Frank, I have to tell you, canceling now will likely mean Premier Tech won't qualify for this loan amount. Without your backing, they're looking at maybe $500,000 maximum, if that." "I understand. And there may be penalties. I'll pay them." Patricia's fingers flew over her keyboard. "There's a processing fee of $15,000 for cancellation at this stage. Are you sure about this?" I pulled out my business checkbook. "I'm sure." As I signed the cancellation forms, Patricia watched me carefully. "Frank, I've known you a long time. This isn't like you. You've always supported Marcus's ventures." I set down the pen and met her eyes. Maybe that's been my mistake. 20 minutes later, I sat in my truck in the parking garage, staring at my phone. 3 missed calls from Marcus, 4 text messages. "Dad, the bank just called. WTF? Call me now. Dad, this isn't funny. You can't do this." I turned off my phone and drove to my office. Donovan Construction operated out of a converted warehouse in Glendale. Nothing fancy, just functional space with a small showroom for clients, and a larger area for equipment storage and planning. My office manager, Rosa, looked up as I walked in. "Frank, you look like you've seen a ghost. Everything okay?" "Everything's fine, Rosa. Can you pull up our contract files for the Westside development? I want to review our commitments for the next quarter." She raised an eyebrow, but didn't push. That's what I loved about Rosa. 20 years of working together had taught her when to ask questions and when to give space. I spent the morning immersed in work, reviewing blueprints and cost estimates. It felt good to focus on something concrete, something I understood. Around noon, my foreman, Jake, knocked on my door. "Boss, there's someone here to see you. Get out of my way!" Marcus stormed past Jake, his face flushed with anger. He was wearing what Elena used to call his power suit, a charcoal Tom Ford that probably cost more than Jake's monthly salary. His usually perfectly styled hair was disheveled, and his silk tie hung loose. "What the hell do you think you're doing?" he shouted, slamming his hands on my desk. I leaned back in my chair, oddly calm. "Good afternoon, Marcus. You should apologize to Jake for your rudeness." "Apologize? Apologize? You just sabotaged my entire company, and you want me to apologize to your employee?" Jake lingered in the doorway, uncertain. I nodded to him. "It's okay, Jake. Close the door on your way out." Once we were alone, Marcus paced my office like a caged animal. "Do you have any idea what you've done? I have investors lined up, contracts ready to sign. We're supposed to launch in London next month." "Then I suggest you find alternative financing," I said evenly. He stopped pacing and stared at me. "Alternative financing? Dad, no bank will give us $2.5 million without major collateral." You know this. I do know this. Just like I know you consider me financial dead weight. The color drained from his face. What? What are you talking about? Yesterday. Your conference call. I was in your kitchen delivering the food you're too busy to shop for, in my embarrassing clothes with my ancient car parked outside. Marcus ran a hand through his hair, his anger shifting to damage control mode. Dad, that was... You don't understand the context. In business, we have to project a certain image. An image that doesn't include a father who worked 16-hour days to put you through school? Who refinanced his house to fund your first startup? Who co-signed every loan, vouched for every credit application, and never asked for a penny in return? That's not fair. What's not fair, I interrupted, standing up, is discovering that my son sees me as an embarrassment, a burden, dead weight. Marcus slumped into the chair across from my desk. It's not like that. You don't understand. My world. These people I deal with, they're different. They expect you to have gotten where you are on your own merit, I finished. Without Daddy's construction company backing your loans? Without the safety net that let you take risks others couldn't afford? His silence was answer enough. I sat back down and pulled out a folder from my desk drawer. Do you know what's in this? He shook his head. Every loan document, every financial guarantee, every time I've put my company on the line for yours. I spread the papers across my desk. 14 different transactions over 7 years. Total value, $8.3 million. Marcus stared at the papers, his jaw working. I didn't realize it was that much. Of course you didn't, because to you, it was just Dad being Dad. Always there, always reliable, always willing to sign on the dotted line. I've paid everything. Beck, that's not the point! My voice rose for the first time. The point is respect, Marcus. The point is gratitude. The point is remembering where you came from. He shifted uncomfortably. So what now? You're going to let my company fail to teach me a lesson? I gathered the papers back into the folder. Your company won't fail if it's as strong as you claim. You'll just have to scale back, maybe delay the expansion. Work within your means. Work within my... He laughed bitterly. Do you know what my competitors will say? What my investors will think? I imagine they'll think you're running a business that stands on its own merits, not on your father's reputation. Marcus stood abruptly. This is insane. You're destroying everything I've worked for over some stupid comment. No, I said quietly. I'm stopping myself from enabling behavior that your mother would have been ashamed to see. That landed like a physical blow. Marcus flinched, his eyes flickering to the photo of Elena on my bookshelf. Mom would have understood, he said weakly. She always said I was destined for big things. She did, I agreed. But she also taught you to say thank you, to show respect, to remember that success means nothing if you lose your humanity along the way. Marcus straightened his tie, trying to regain his composure. So that's it? You're really going to do this? It's already done. He stood there for a long moment, looking like the lost boy who used to come to me with scraped knees and broken toys. Then the mask slipped back on, and he was Marcus Donovan, tech CEO, again. You'll regret this, he said coldly. When my company becomes the next tech giant, when I'm on the cover of Forbes, you'll wish you hadn't been so petty. I smiled sadly. Maybe. But I'd rather regret standing up for my principles than regret enabling someone who's forgotten his. He turned to leave, then paused at the door. What am I supposed to tell my team? My investors? Tell them the truth, that you need to secure funding based on your company's actual value, not your father's guarantee. They'll never... Then maybe, I interrupted. They don't believe in your company as much as you think they do. Marcus left without another word, slamming the door behind him. I sat in the sudden silence, staring at the photo of Elena, Did I do the right thing? I whispered. Of course she didn't answer. But I remembered something she used to say when Marcus was young and testing boundaries. Sometimes love means saying no, Frank. Sometimes the hardest thing and the right thing are the same thing. I turned back to my computer and opened my email. Time to decline that investor dinner invitation. If Marcus wanted to play the family business legacy angle, he'd have to do it without me as a prop. The phone on my desk rang. The caller ID showed Premier Tech Innovations. I let it go to voicemail. Outside my office window, I could see Jake directing a concrete pour for our latest project, a community center in Boyle Heights. Real work, honest work. The kind of work that built things that lasted, not just valuations and projections. I picked up my hard hat from the corner of my office. Maybe it was time to remind myself what real value looked like, what actual weight felt like, the weight of responsibility, of integrity, of building something that mattered. As I walked out to join my crew, my personal phone buzzed with another text from Marcus. I didn't need to read it. For the first time in years, I felt unburdened. Financial dead weight? I smiled grimly. We'd see who was carrying whom. Later that evening, back at my house, I reheated the lasagna I'd originally made for Marcus. As I ate alone at my kitchen table, I thought about the road ahead. This wasn't just about alone or hurt feelings. This was about Marcus learning a lesson that all my success and support had somehow failed to teach him. The house felt especially quiet tonight. Elena would have known what to say, how to handle this. She always had a way of balancing tough love with tenderness. I missed her wisdom, her warmth, her ability to see the best in people while still holding them accountable. Carmen, what are you doing here? She walked past me into the house. What am I doing here? My nephew calls me at midnight, talking like his world is ending, and you ask what I'm doing here? I closed the door. He called you? Of course he called. Me. Apparently, his father has lost his mind and is trying to destroy his company. She turned to face me, hands on hips. Want to tell me what's really going on? I led her to the kitchen and poured us both coffee. Then I told her everything. The overheard conversation, the financial deadweight comment, the years of silent support, the decision to cancel the loan. Carmen listened without interrupting. When I finished, she was quiet for a long moment. You know what Elena would say? She finally asked. What? She'd say it's about damn time. I blinked. Excuse me? Carmen sighed. Frank, we all saw it happening. Elena and I used to talk about it. How Marcus was starting to take you for granted. How his values were changing. She worried about it constantly those last few months. She never said anything to me. Because she knew you'd defend him. You always did. Elena understood Marcus in ways you sometimes couldn't. She saw the ambition turning into something else. Entitlement, maybe. Arrogance. I stared into my coffee. I thought I was being a good father. You are, but sometimes being a good parent means being willing to be the bad guy. Carmen reached across the table and squeezed my hand. Elena would be proud of you for finally standing up for yourself. The next morning, Saturday, I decided to visit the cemetery. Elena's grave was in Forest Lawn, overlooking the city. I brought fresh sunflowers, her favorites, and sat on the bench beside her headstone. I miss you, I said quietly. I could use your advice right about now. The morning was peaceful, just the distant sound of city traffic and birds in the trees. I told Elena about everything that had happened, speaking to her the way I had throughout our marriage, as if she were sitting right beside me. The thing is, I said, I don't know if I'm teaching him a lesson or just pushing him away. What if he never forgives me? What if this is the end of our relationship? A breeze rustled through the trees, and for a moment, I could almost hear Elena's voice. Have faith, Frank. In yourself. In Marcus. In the values we taught him. I was walking back to my truck when my phone rang. The number was unfamiliar. Mr. Donovan, this is James Crawford from Pacific Capital Investments. I understand your son's company is seeking funding for their European expansion. My heart sank. So Marcus was already out there pitching to new investors. I'm not sure why you're calling me, Mr. Crawford. Well, your son gave us your name as a reference. Said you've been instrumental in his company's success. I was hoping we could discuss your involvement with Premier Tech. I stopped walking. Marcus had given my name as a reference? After everything that had happened? Mr. Crawford, I should tell you up front. I recently withdrew my financial backing from my son's company. Any decision you make should be based solely on Premier Tech's merits, not on any perceived connection to my business. There was a pause. I see. May I ask why you withdrew your support? Let's just say it was time for my son to stand on his own. I appreciate your honesty, Mr. Donovan. That kind of integrity is refreshing in this business. After the call, I sat in my truck puzzled. Why would Marcus give my name as a reference, knowing I'd have to tell the truth? Was this some kind of game? Or was he finally beginning to understand? Monday morning arrived with an unexpected development. Rosa forwarded me an email from the Los Angeles Business Journal requesting an interview about the changing dynamics of family businesses in the tech age. The reporter specifically mentioned Premier Tech and Donovan Construction as examples. I declined the interview, but it made me wonder how much of our family drama was becoming public knowledge. Around noon, I got a text from my neighbor, Bill. Saw Marcus's car in your driveway this morning. Everything okay? I hadn't been home since leaving for the office at 6 a.m. What was Marcus doing at my house? When I got home that evening, I found an envelope on my kitchen table. Inside was a check for $50,000 and a note. First installment on what I owe you, not just financially. Emma stared at the check. It wasn't about the money. It never had been. But maybe this was Marcus's way of trying to bridge the gap between us. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about all the times Marcus and I had sat at this kitchen table, homework struggles, college applications, business plans, and late-night talks about his dreams. How had we gone from that closeness to barely speaking? The next morning, I was reviewing permits for a new project when Jake knocked on my door. Boss, there's a bit of a situation at the West Side site. The client's son is there, throwing his weight around, demanding changes to the plans. I sighed. Which client? Henderson. His kid just graduated from some fancy business school and thinks he knows construction now. I grabbed my hard hat. As we drove to the site, I couldn't help but think about the irony. Here I was, dealing with another entitled son who thought he knew better than the people who'd actually built something. The Henderson kid was everything I'd started to despise. Expensive suit on a construction site, waving his MBA around like a weapon, talking down to my foreman who had 30 years of experience. The thing is, he was saying as I approached, modern construction needs to embrace disruption. We should be using AI to optimize the pour schedule. Sir, my foreman, Pete, said patiently, we can't disrupt the laws of physics. Concrete needs time to cure properly, AI or not. I stepped in. Is there a problem here? The kid turned to me. You must be Donovan. Look, I'm just trying to bring some 21st century thinking to this project. No offense, but you guys are still operating like it's 1985. Sometimes, I said evenly, 1985 methods are exactly what's needed. They're proven, reliable, and they don't collapse when the Wi-Fi goes out. Later, as we drove back to the office, Jake said, You handled that well, boss. For a minute there, I thought you were going to deck the kid. The thought crossed my mind, I admitted. But you know what? I felt sorry for him. In 10 years, he'll either figure out that respect matters more than an MBA, or he'll crash and burn. Just like, I stopped myself, but Jake knew what I'd been about to say. That afternoon, I got a call from Patricia at the bank. Frank, I thought you should know, Premier Tech has secured alternative funding. Not the full amount they wanted, but enough to keep operations going. The terms aren't as favorable as what we offered, but it's something. Who's the lender? A consortium of angel investors. They're taking a bigger equity stake than your son probably wanted to give up, but desperate times and all that. After I hung up, I felt oddly proud. Marcus had figured it out. He'd found a way forward without me, even if it meant giving up some control. Maybe there was hope for him yet. That evening, I was having dinner at my favorite local diner when I overheard a conversation at the next table. Did you hear about that tech CEO whose daddy cut him off? Apparently he's been living off the old man's money while pretending to be self-made. Rich kids, man. They never learn. I focused on my meatloaf, trying not to react, but their words stung. Not because they were talking about me, but because they were talking about Marcus. Despite everything, he was still my son. Wednesday brought another surprise. A certified letter arrived at my office from a law firm I didn't recognize. My stomach dropped as I opened it, expecting some kind of legal action from Marcus. Instead, it was a formal document establishing a repayment plan for all the financial support I'd provided over the years. Every loan, every guarantee, every bailout, itemized and scheduled for repayment over the next 10 years with interest. The cover letter was brief. Mr. Donovan, my client, Marcus Donovan, wishes to formalize the repayment of all financial obligations to you. Please review the attached schedule and let us know if the terms are acceptable. I called my lawyer, Sarah Martinez. Is this legally binding? Very much so. He's essentially converting informal family loans into formal debt. Frank, this is unusual. Most family financial arrangements stay informal. Nothing about this situation is usual, Sarah. That night, I sat in my home office, looking at old photo albums. Pictures of Marcus at 5, covered in mud from helping at job sites. At 12, proudly showing off his first computer program. At 16, working summers with my crew to earn money for his first car. When had that eager, grateful kid turned? Into someone who saw me as an embarrassment? Thursday morning brought yet another unexpected visitor to my office. Robert Kim, one of Marcus's investors and a prominent figure in LA's tech scene. Frank, I hope you don't mind me dropping by unannounced. Not at all, Robert. What can I do for you? He sat down looking uncomfortable. I wanted to talk to you about Marcus, about what's been happening. I'm not sure that's appropriate. Please, he interrupted. I know about the loan cancellation. I know about the strain in your relationship. I'm not here to take sides. I'm here because I see something in Marcus that reminds me of myself 20 years ago. I waited for him to continue. I was just like him, Robert said. Cocky, ungrateful, thought I knew everything. My father was a small business owner, too, had a chain of dry cleaners. I was embarrassed by him, by his broken English, by his cheap clothes. I actually told investors he was dead because I didn't want them to meet him. What changed? He died. For real. Heart attack at 62. He never got to see my success, never got to hear me say I was sorry, never got to know that everything I achieved was because of the work ethic he taught me. Robert leaned forward. Frank, I'm not saying you should forgive Marcus right away. What you did, pulling that loan, was probably exactly what he needed. But don't let this become permanent. Don't let pride on either side destroy something. That can still be saved. After Robert left, I sat at my desk for a long time, thinking, was I letting pride get in the way? Was I punishing Marcus for reminding me of my own insecurities about not being sophisticated enough for his world? That evening, as I was locking up the office, my phone rang. The caller ID showed Marcus. I hesitated, then answered. Hello, Marcus. Dad? His voice sounded different, tired, maybe even humble. I I wanted to thank you for talking to James Crawford. He told me what you said about standing on my own merits. You're welcome. A long pause. Dad, I've been thinking a lot these past few days. About what you said, about what I said. He stopped, cleared his throat. I signed that repayment plan today, with the lawyers. I saw it. It's not about the money, he said quickly. I know that's not what this is about. It's about showing you that I understand, that I finally get it. Get what, exactly? That everything I have, everything I've built, it all started with what you and Mom gave me. Not just money, but values, work ethic, the confidence to take risks because I knew someone had my back. I felt something loosen in my chest. Marcus, I'm sorry, Dad. For what I said, for how I've been acting, for taking you for granted. You're not dead weight. You're the foundation everything else is built on. I closed my eyes, leaning against my truck. Thank you for saying that. I want to earn back your respect, not your money, your respect. How do you plan to do that? By building something real, something that lasts, the way you did. He paused. I've been thinking about what you said. That day in your office, about Mom being ashamed. You were right, she would be. We talked for a few more minutes, awkward, stilted, but real. When we hung up, I sat in my truck in the dark parking lot, watching the city lights flicker in the distance. Change doesn't happen overnight. Trust, once broken, takes time to rebuild. But maybe, just maybe, this was a beginning. The next morning, Friday, I arrived at the office to find a small package on my desk. Inside was a framed photo I hadn't seen before. Marcus and me at a construction site when he was about 8, both of us wearing hard hats, both covered in dust and grinning. At the camera. A sticky note was attached. Found this in Mom's things. Thought you should have it. We should talk about the future, not the company's future, but ours. Dinner Sunday? My treat, and I mean that literally this time. M. I set the photo on my desk next to the picture of Elena. Then I picked up my phone and sent a single-word reply. Yes. Rosa knocked on my door with the morning mail. She saw the photo and smiled. That's a good picture. Yeah, I said. It is. He's finding his way back, isn't he? Maybe. We'll see. She nodded and left me with my thoughts. Outside, I could hear my crew preparing for the day's work, the sound of trucks arriving, equipment being checked, voices calling out greetings. The rhythm of honest work, of building things that mattered. I looked at the photo again. That boy in the hard hat, the one who used to follow me around job sites asking a million questions. He was still in there somewhere, underneath the designer. Suits and tech jargon. And maybe, with time and patience, he'd find his way back to being someone both his parents could be proud of. Someone who understood that true success wasn't measured in valuations or market share, but in the respect you earned and the legacy you built. My phone buzzed with a text from Marcus. Also, I'm keeping the Camry. I frowned, confused, then read. His follow-up. Bought one just like yours. Turns out reliable and practical aren't embarrassing after all. I laughed, actually laughed, for the first time in weeks. Yes, there was definitely hope. Sunday evening arrived with the kind of Southern California sunset that made the smog look almost beautiful. I stood in front of my bathroom mirror, adjusting my collar for the 5th time. It was just dinner with my son, something we'd done hundreds of times before. But this felt different. This felt like a first date after a divorce, awkward and charged with the weight of everything unsaid. I'd chosen to wear the same clothes I'd worn that day at Marcus's office. My comfortable jeans, work boots, and a clean but simple button-down shirt. If we were going to rebuild our relationship, it would be on honest terms. Marcus had suggested we meet at Moretti's, a small Italian place in Eagle Rock, where we used to go for special occasions when he was young. Not the flashy restaurants in Beverly Hills where he now entertained clients, but a family-owned establishment with checkered tablecloths and wine bottles covered in melted candle wax. He was already there when I arrived, sitting at our old regular table by the window. What surprised me wasn't that he was early. Marcus had always been punctual, but what he was wearing. Gone was the designer suit. Instead, he wore jeans and a UCLA sweatshirt I remembered buying him his freshman year. "Dad," he said, standing as I approached. We shook hands awkwardly, both uncertain whether to attempt a hug. "You still have that sweatshirt," I observed as we sat down. He glanced down at it, almost surprised himself. "Found it in my closet yesterday. Made me realize I haven't worn comfortable clothes in... I honestly can't remember how long." Rosaria, who'd been waiting tables here for 20 years, approached our table. Her face lit up. "Frank, Marcus, together again. It's been too long." She turned to Marcus. "I remember when you were this high, always ordering the spaghetti with extra meatballs." "Still sounds good to me," Marcus said, and for a moment, I saw that 8-year-old boy again. After we ordered, an uncomfortable silence settled between us. Finally, Marcus spoke. "I've been doing a lot of thinking this week, about everything, about who I've become." He fidgeted with his napkin. "Do you know what my employees call me when they think I'm not listening? The machine. Because I never stop working, never show emotion, never admit weakness. Is that what you wanted? To be seen that way?" I thought I did. I thought that's what success looked like. He met my eyes. But this week, when everything started falling apart, not one of them called to check on me personally. They called about the company, about their jobs, about the deals, but not one asked if I was okay. And that surprised you? It shouldn't have. I created that culture. I built those walls. He paused as Rosaria brought our wine. "But you know, who did call? Pete. Pete Martinez, my foreman? Yeah. He heard about what happened from someone and called to see if I needed anything. Said he remembered teaching me how to read blueprints that summer I worked with your crew. Said he was proud of what I'd built, even if he didn't understand half of it." I smiled. "Pete's good people. They all are, your whole team. I used to think, God, this is embarrassing. I used to think I was somehow above all that. The manual labor, the dirty hands, the simple satisfaction of building something physical. I thought I'd evolved past it. Our food arrived, and for a few minutes, we ate in companionable silence. The spaghetti was exactly as I remembered. Nothing fancy, just good, honest food. "Can I tell you something?" Marcus said eventually. "That day you overheard me on the call? That wasn't the first time I'd said things like that. I'd been playing that role for months. The hotshot CEO who came from nothing, made it on his own. Letting people assume my background was rougher than it was, that I'd had to fight harder than I did. Why? Because in my world, having a father who supported you, who co-signed loans, who built a successful business through decades of actual work, that's seen as weakness. My competitors, they brag about absent fathers, about overcoming neglect, about succeeding despite their families. Having a dad who packed my lunch in high school, who came to every science fair, who taught me to change my oil, that doesn't fit the narrative." I set down my fork. "So you rewrote it?" "I rewrote it. And in doing that, I erased everything you and Mom did for me." His voice cracked slightly. "I found her journal this week. After our fight, I went looking through some old boxes. She wrote about being worried that I was losing myself in the pursuit of success. This was 3 years ago before she got sick. She saw it coming. Your mother was always more perceptive than me. No, Dad, you saw it too. You just loved me too much to call me on it until you absolutely had to." We sat with that truth for a moment. The loan situation. Marcus continued. I've secured alternative funding, but you were right. The terms are challenging. I had to give up 30% more equity than I wanted. My board is asking hard questions about our burn rate, our actual versus projected revenues. Questions they should have been asking all along but didn't, because they knew you were the safety net. How are you handling it? Day by day. I had to let 3 people go this week. Not the executives, the actual workers. The people who build our products, who answer our phones. I sat in my office with its stupid expensive furniture and realized I'd created a top-heavy company just like the ones I used to criticize. Our conversation was interrupted by my phone buzzing. I glanced at it. A text from Jake about a problem at one of our sites. Work? Marcus asked. Minor issue. Jake can handle it. You know, I used to judge you for always being available to your team, always taking their calls. I thought it showed a lack of boundaries, of executive distance. He shook his head. Now, I realize it showed something else entirely. Respect, loyalty. The understanding that leadership isn't about being above people, it's about being responsible for them. After dinner, we walked the old neighborhood. It had changed, gentrified in some areas, still struggling in others, but the bones were the same. We found ourselves at the small park where Marcus had learned to ride a bike. Remember when I crashed? Into that tree? He asked, pointing to a large oak. Split your lip open. Your mother was furious with me for letting go of the bike too soon. You told me something that day. Do you remember? I thought back. Probably something about getting back up and trying again? No. You said, the ground's always there to catch. You, son. But the only way to really fly is to risk the fall. We sat on a bench, watching a father teaching his own child to ride a bicycle in the fading light. I've been thinking about that a lot, Marcus said. How I interpreted it to mean I should always be pushing higher, reaching for more. But maybe what you really meant was that it's okay to fall sometimes. That the ground, you, mom, home, would always be there. Maybe I meant both. He turned to me. I want to show you something. Will you come to my office? There's something there I need you to see. We drove to his building in separate cars. The office was empty on a Sunday night, and Marcus had to use 3 different key cards to get us to the executive floor. The contrast between this space and my own office was stark, all glass and steel, designed to impress rather than function. Marcus led me past his corner office to a conference room I'd never seen before. He flipped on the lights, revealing walls, covered with framed articles, photographs, and awards. My wall of fame, he said with a trace of bitterness. Or shame, depending on how you look at it. I walked along the wall, reading headlines. Marcus Donovan, the self-made millionaire. From bootstrap to billions, the premier tech story. Why family money is killing innovation. That last one, Marcus said. I gave that interview 2 months ago. Spent an hour talking about how accepting family money was a crutch that prevented true entrepreneurship, all while knowing that your signature was on every major financial document we had. He walked to a cabinet and pulled out a box. I had my assistant take all these down on Friday, but then I realized something. He opened the box and pulled out a different set of frames. These are what should have been up there all along. He began hanging the new frames. They contained photos I recognized. Marcus and me at the groundbreaking for my first major construction project. His acceptance letter to Stanford with a handwritten note from me at the bottom. A picture of Elena teaching him to balance his first business ledger, a framed check. The first payment I'd ever received from one of his businesses with "Thanks, Dad," written in the memo line. I'm also rewriting my bio, he said. The real one this time, about how my success was built on the foundation my parents provided. About how Donovan Construction's reputation opened doors for me. About how every risk I took was possible because I had a safety net built by 2 people who worked their whole lives to give me opportunities they never had. We stood there in his conference room, surrounded by the old frames and the new ones, the discarded narrative and the truth. What will your board think? I asked. Some will respect it, others won't. But I'm done caring. I'd rather have a smaller company built on truth than an empire built on lies. My phone buzzed again. Jake with another update. This time I showed it to Marcus. Electrical issue at the Riverside project, I explained. Jake thinks we need to bring in a specialist. Jack Morrison, Marcus said immediately. He's the best. Electrical contractor in the valley. Want me to call him? I raised an eyebrow. You know Jack? I know him because you know him. Because every summer I worked with your crew. You made sure I learned from the best in every trade. He pulled out his phone. Jack? It's Marcus Donovan, Frank's son. Yeah. It's been a while. Listen, we've got a situation at the Riverside project. As I listened to my son confidently discussing electrical load capacities and city code requirements, knowledge I'd forgotten he even had, I felt something shift back into place. After the call, we left the building together. In the parking garage, Marcus stopped by his car. Not the Tesla he usually drove, but a used Toyota Camry, just as he'd promised. I actually bought this from one of your guys, he said. Tom was selling his daughter's car after she went to college. Gave me a good deal, Tom told me. He also said you spent an hour under the hood with him, checking everything yourself. Old habits, Marcus smiled. You know, driving this car, it's strange. I feel more like myself than I have in years. As we said goodbye, we finally managed. That hug, awkward still, but real. Dad, Marcus said as we parted. I've got a board meeting Tuesday. They want to discuss the new direction of the company. I could use some advice. Real advice, from someone who's actually built something that lasts. I'm free Monday afternoon. Great. And Dad, bring your hard hat. I want to show you something at our warehouse. Something I should have shown you years ago. Monday afternoon. I arrived at Premier Tech's warehouse facility in Van Nuys. Marcus met me at the entrance, and to my surprise, he was wearing steel-toed boots and carrying 2 hard hats. OSHA would have my head if I let you walk around without proper equipment, he said, handing me a hat. The warehouse was impressive. 30,000 square feet of organized chaos where his company assembled their smart home automation systems. What struck me wasn't the technology but the organization. Clean floors, clear signage, proper safety equipment visible everywhere. You run a tight ship, I observed. I had a good teacher. Come on, I want you to meet someone. He led me to a workshop, area where a woman in her 60s was training a group of younger employees on circuit board assembly. Dad, this is Maria Gonzalez, our production supervisor. Maria, this is my father, Frank Donovan. Maria's eyes lit up. Mr. Donovan, I've been wanting to meet you. Your son talks about you more than you might think. I glanced at Marcus, surprised. Oh, yes, Maria continued. Every time we implement a new safety protocol or quality control measure, he says, "That's how my dad would do it." Though lately, she paused, looking between us. Lately, he hasn't mentioned you as much. We've had some communication issues, Marcus admitted. But we're working on them. After the tour, we sat in Marcus's office, notably more modest than his executive suite downtown. The furniture was functional rather than flashy, the walls covered with production schedules and quality metrics rather than vanity awards. This is where you actually work, I said. More and more, yes. The downtown office is for investors and clients. This is where the real business happens. We spent the next 2 hours going over his presentation for the board meeting. His plans were ambitious but grounded in reality, scaling back the European expansion, focusing on profitability over growth, restructuring to put more resources into product development and customer service. You're essentially telling your board you want to grow slower but stronger, I observed. Exactly. Build a foundation before reaching for the sky, a lesson I should have learned earlier. They might not like it. Some might even jump ship. Then they're not the right partners for what I'm trying to build. He paused. What you and Mom always built, something that lasts. As we wrapped up, Marcus walked me to my truck. Dad, there's something else I wanted to ask you about. Victoria Chen, you remember her? Your lead programmer. She called me last week. She's brilliant, loyal. She's stuck with me through everything. But she grew up like I did, working-class parents who sacrificed everything for their kids' education. She's starting to show the same signs I did, pulling away from her family, acting embarrassed by where she came from. What are you asking me? I'm asking how to help her avoid my mistakes, how to be the kind of leader who helps people succeed without losing themselves. I leaned against my truck, thinking, you can't live her journey for her, but you can model something different. Show her it's possible to be successful without erasing your roots. Share your own story, the real one. Marcus nodded. I've been thinking about starting a mentorship program, not just for coding skills, but for navigating success without losing your values. Would you consider being part of it? Teaching these kids what you taught me, even if I forgot it for a while? I'd be honored. That evening, I got a call from Carmen. I hear you two are talking again, she said. News travels fast. Marcus called me after your dinner. He sounded different, more like the boy Elena and I used to know. He's trying, Carmen. We both are. Good. Elena would be happy. You know what she told me once? She said Marcus had your ambition, but needed your wisdom. She always believed you two would find your way back to each other. That night, I sat in my home office, looking at the photo Marcus had sent me, the one of us at the construction site. Next to it, I placed the framed check from the box he'd shown me, the one with "Thanks, Dad" written on it. My laptop dinged with an email. It was from Marcus. Attached is the revised company bio and the press release about our restructuring. Wanted you to see it before it goes public tomorrow. I opened the document and read, Premier Tech Innovations announces a strategic restructuring focused on sustainable growth and core values. CEO Marcus Donovan credits the company's new direction to lessons learned from his father, Frank Donovan, founder of Donovan Construction, whose principles of building lasting value over quick profits have shaped the younger Donovan's business philosophy. It went on to detail not just the business changes, but the personal journey that led to them, including a frank admission of how close the company had come to crisis and how family wisdom had provided the path forward. I called Marcus. This is quite a public statement. It needs to be. I've been living a public lie for too long. Time for some public truth. Your investors won't all appreciate this. The right ones will. And if we lose some along the way, well, you taught me that sometimes you have to tear down a weak foundation to build something stronger. Marcus, I'm proud of you. There was a pause on the line. When he spoke again, his voice was thick with emotion. I've been waiting a long time to hear you say that again. I never stopped being proud of you, son. I just stopped being proud of what you were becoming. There's a difference. I know that now. Dad? Yeah? I love you. I love you too, son. After we hung up, I sat in the quiet of my office, feeling something I hadn't felt in months, hope. Not just for Marcus and me, but for what could be built when you're willing to demolish pretense and start again with truth. The next morning, the business press had a field day with Marcus's announcement. The headlines ranged from supportive, tech CEO chooses sustainable growth over hype, to skeptical, Premier Tech's family drama sparks corporate soul-searching, to cynical, millennial CEO discovers parents actually knew something. My phone rang all morning, reporters wanting comments, business associates expressing surprise, even a few competitors fishing for information. I directed them all to Marcus's press release. Around noon, Jake knocked on my door. Boss, you might want to come outside. We've got a visitor. In our parking lot sat Marcus's Camry. He was leaning against it, talking to several of my crew members. As I approached, I heard him telling them about his upcoming presentation. And that's when I realized everything my dad taught me about building things that last applies to any business, not just construction. Pete noticed me first. "Hey, Frank, your boy here was just telling us about his board meeting. Sounds like he's finally using that brain we always knew he had." The crew dispersed, leaving Marcus and me alone. "Thought I'd stop by before the big meeting," he said. "Wanted to see if you had any last-minute advice. Just be yourself, the real yourself." He nodded, then reached into his car and pulled out 2 hard hats. Not the new ones from his warehouse, but old ones, worn and scratched. One had F. Donovan stenciled on it, the other M. Donovan. "Found these in Mom's things," he said. "From that summer, I worked with your crew. She kept them." I took my old hard hat, running my fingers over the familiar scratches and dings. "I remember these." I was thinking, after my board meeting, if it goes well, or maybe especially if it doesn't, maybe we could do some actual work together. "You mentioned you've got that community center project in Boyle Heights. I still remember how to read blueprints." I looked at my son, my successful, struggling, finding his way back son, and smiled. "I'd like that. But fair warning, Pete's still going to make you fetch coffee for everyone." I wouldn't have it any other way. As Marcus drove off to face his board, hard hat on the passenger seat beside him, I felt Elena's presence stronger than I had in months. Not as a ghost or a memory, but as a bridge between who we were and who we were becoming. I walked back into my office and picked up the phone to call our concrete supplier. We had a foundation to pour at the community center, site next week. And for the first time in years, I knew my son would be there to help build it. The call came at 6:47 p.m., just as I was cleaning up from dinner. Marcus's voice was different, lighter somehow, free of the corporate edge I'd grown used to hearing. "Dad?" The board meeting. It went better than I hoped. Not everyone was happy, but the ones who matter are on board with the new direction. How many walked? 3 out of 8. But here's the thing. The 5 who stayed, including Robert Kim, they admitted they'd been worried about the company's direction for months. Said they only stuck around because they trusted your judgment in backing me. I sat down at my kitchen table, the same one where this whole journey had begun with a check and a note. So what happens now? Now we rebuild. Smaller, steadier, more, honestly. And Dad? We've got our first client meeting under the new structure tomorrow. A small healthcare company looking for custom automation systems. They reached out because they read our press release and liked our approach to sustainable business growth. That's great, son. I was wondering, would you like to sit in? Not as my backup plan this time, but as an advisor, someone who's actually built something that lasts. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about Elena, about what she would say about this twist in our journey. I pulled out her old recipe box, the one she'd filled not just with recipes but with notes about life, observations about our son, dreams for our family. There, between her famous lasagna recipe and notes for Thanksgiving dinner, I found a card that read, "Frank, when Marcus is ready to learn, he'll come back to you. Don't give up on him. Love always, E." The next morning, I dressed in my usual work clothes but grabbed a clean button-down shirt to keep in my truck. If I was going to be an advisor at my son's business meeting, I'd at least try to bridge the gap between our worlds. The meeting was at Premier Tech's warehouse office, not the downtown showroom. The clients, David and Martha Chen, owned a small chain of medical clinics and were looking for ways to improve patient care through technology while keeping costs reasonable. I watched Marcus carefully as he presented. Gone was the slick sales pitch, the buzzwords, the inflated promises. Instead, he talked about real solutions to real problems, about building systems that would last, about the importance of getting the foundation right before adding bells and whistles. My father taught me, Marcus said at one point, that you can't automate what you don't understand. Before we propose any technology solution, we spend time learning your actual workflows, your real challenges. When the Chens had questions about long-term support and maintenance costs, Marcus turned to me. Dad, you've been maintaining systems, albeit different ones, for 40 years. What would you advise? I leaned forward. Plan for maintenance from day one. Budget for it. Expect it. The cheapest solution up front often costs the most over time. Better to invest in quality and build in redundancy than to constantly patch problems. After the meeting, as we walked the Chens to their car, Martha pulled me aside. Mr. Donovan, can I ask you something? This new direction your son is taking, is it real? We've been burned before by tech companies that promised one thing and delivered another. I looked over at Marcus, who was explaining something technical to David, using hand gestures I recognized from years of job sites, the same way I explained construction concepts to clients. 6 months ago, I would have had doubts, I admitted. But yes, I believe this is real. Sometimes people need to lose their way to find their true direction. That afternoon, Marcus asked if I wanted to grab lunch at our old spot, a hole-in-the-wall barbecue joint near the construction yard where we used to go when he was in high school. Remember when I told you I wanted to drop out of school to start my first company? Marcus asked, digging into his brisket. You were 16. Your big idea was an app to help people find lost socks. He laughed. And you didn't just say no. You made me write a business plan, do market research, figure out the actual costs. By the time you finished, you'd decided to stay in school. But I'd learned how to think through an idea properly. You didn't kill my ambition. You taught me how to channel it. We sat in comfortable silence for a moment before Marcus spoke again. I've been thinking about Victoria Chen, about what you said about helping her avoid my mistakes. I told her my story yesterday, the real one, about how I got where I am, about the crisis we just went through, about the danger of forgetting. Where you come from? How did she take it? She cried. Then she called her mom for the first time in 3 months. He paused. I'm implementing something new at the company. Every employee gets 1 paid day off per quarter specifically to spend with family. No questions asked, no work emergencies allowed to interfere. That's good, Marcus. I'm calling it the Elena Donovan Family Day, if that's okay with you. I had to clear my throat before answering. She'd like that. 3 weeks passed. Marcus and I fell into a rhythm. Wednesday lunches, Sunday dinners, occasional consultation on each other's projects. It wasn't the same as before, but maybe it was better, more honest, more intentional. Then came the call that changed everything. Again. It was a Tuesday morning. I was reviewing plans for a new strip mall in Burbank when Rosa knocked on my door, her face pale. Frank, it's Presbyterian Hospital on the line. There's been an accident at Marcus's warehouse. My heart stopped. I grabbed the phone. Mr. Donovan? This is Dr. Sarah Kim. Your son Marcus has been brought in. Is he alive? Yes, but he's injured. There was an accident with some equipment. He's stable, but he's asking for you. I don't remember the drive to the hospital. I just remember bursting through the emergency room doors, finding the desk, somehow forming words to ask for my son. They led me to a room where Marcus lay in a hospital bed, his left arm in a cast, a bandage on his forehead. His eyes were closed, but they opened when he heard me enter. Dad, what happened? Forklift accident. Driver had a medical episode, heart problem, lost control. I pushed one of our warehouse workers out of the way but couldn't move fast enough myself. I sat down hard in the chair beside his bed. You could have been killed. But I wasn't. He managed a weak smile. Guess all those safety lectures you gave me stuck. I was wearing my hard hat. Doctor said it probably saved me from a serious head injury. The doctor came in then, explaining that Marcus had a broken arm, bruised ribs, and a mild concussion. "He's lucky," she said. "Could have been much worse." As she left, I heard commotion in the hallway. Victoria Chen appeared in the doorway, followed by several other Premier Tech employees. "We came as soon as we heard," Victoria said, then saw Marcus's injuries and gasped. "Oh my God!" "I'm okay," Marcus assured them. Then he looked at me. "Dad, can you do something for me? The warehouse? Someone needs to handle the safety report, talk to OSHA when they show up, make sure everything's documented properly." I stood up. "I'll take care of it." "And Dad?" "Make sure someone checks on Jerry. He's the driver who had the medical episode. Make sure he's getting proper care. This wasn't his fault." At the warehouse, I found organized chaos. Police were taking statements, employees were shaken but following emergency procedures. I was impressed. Marcus had obviously implemented proper safety protocols. I spent 2 hours handling the immediate crisis, then called Jake to bring over some of my crew to help secure the accident site properly. As word spread, more of my employees showed up voluntarily. "Your boy saved someone's life today," Pete told me. "That's what witnesses are saying." Saw the forklift heading for Annie from accounting, didn't even hesitate. That evening, I returned to the hospital with Marcus's laptop and some files he'd requested. I found him sitting up, talking on the phone. "Yes, I understand the Singapore deal is important, but I'm not going to rush our team just because I'm temporarily sidelined. No, I won't sign off on cutting corners to meet their timeline. If they can't wait for us to do it right, then they're not the right client for us." He ended the call and saw my expression. "What?" "Nothing. Just proud of you." Over the next few days, as Marcus recovered, something unexpected happened. His employees started coming to me for guidance, not just about the warehouse incident, but about ongoing projects, client relationships, company decisions. "Marcus always says, 'What would my dad do?'" Victoria explained. "So we figured we'd ask you directly." I found myself spending more time at Premier Tech, helping maintain operations while Marcus healed. What surprised me wasn't the technology, that was beyond my expertise, but how familiar the underlying business challenges were. Supply chain issues, client expectations, employee morale. These were universal problems that transcended industries. One afternoon, Robert Kim stopped by the hospital while I was visiting Marcus. "Frank," he said, "I've been thinking. This accident, the way you stepped in, Marcus is lucky to have you. He's my son." "No, it's more than that. I told you about my father, remember? When he died, I realized too late what I'd lost. Not just a parent, but a mentor, a business advisor, someone who understood both success and values." He paused. "Have you ever considered joining Premier Tech's board?" Marcus sat up straighter. "That's actually not a bad idea." "I'm not a tech guy," I protested. "We have plenty of tech expertise," Robert said. "What we need is someone who understands building sustainable businesses, someone who can ask the tough questions about values and long-term thinking." I looked at Marcus. "What do you think?" "I think it's time to stop pretending our businesses exist in separate worlds. Donovan Construction's reputation opened doors for me. Maybe it's time to make that relationship official." 3 months later, I stood in Premier Tech's conference room, the same one where Marcus had shown me his wall of shame, now redecorated with photos and documents that told the real story of both our companies. We were announcing a joint venture, Donovan Integrated Systems, combining Premier Tech's smart building technology with Donovan Construction's practical expertise. Our first project would be the Boyle Heights Community Center, now redesigned as a showcase for affordable, sustainable, technology-enhanced community space. The press was there, investors, employees from both companies. But what mattered most to me was the small group in the front row, Carmen, who'd flown in from San Diego, Victoria Chen with her parents, who beamed with pride, Pete and Jake and the crew who'd supported me through everything, and in the center, an empty chair with a photo of Elena and a simple sign, reserved for the one who always believed. Marcus spoke first, his arm still in a brace but his voice strong. My father once told me that the only way to really fly is to risk the fall. What he didn't tell me, what I had to learn the hard way, is that when you do fall, the ground is there to catch you. Not to coddle you, but to give you solid footing to stand up again. When it was my turn, I looked out at the faces, some familiar, some new, all part of this unexpected chapter. 6 months ago, my son called me financial dead weight. It was the best thing that could have happened to both of us. It forced us to examine what we were building and why. It made us question whether success without values is really success at all. I paused, catching Marcus's eye. Elena always said that sometimes things need to fall apart, so better things can fall together. She was right, as usual. After the announcement, as people mingled and celebrated, I found myself standing, with Marcus by the window overlooking the city. "Dad," he said, "I never properly thanked you." "For what?" "For having the courage to let me fail. For teaching me that being a good father doesn't mean enabling bad behavior. For showing me that real strength isn't about never falling. It's about getting back up and rebuilding better." I put my arm around his shoulders. "You know what your mother would say right now?" "What?" "She'd say, 'It's about time you boys figured it out.'" We laughed, and in that moment, I felt Elena's presence stronger than ever, not as a ghost of the past, but as the foundation of our future. 6 months later, the Boyle Heights Community Center opened to great fanfare. The building showcased the best of both worlds, solid construction with integrated technology that served real community needs. Solar panels provided clean energy, smart systems managed resources efficiently, but at its heart, it was a place for people to gather, learn, and grow. At the ribbon-cutting ceremony, Marcus gave a speech about the importance of building bridges between tradition and innovation, between generations, between different kinds of expertise. "Everything worthwhile that I've achieved," he said, started with lessons learned at construction sites, in cramped offices, around kitchen tables. My father didn't just teach me about business. He taught me about integrity, hard work, and the courage to do what's right even when it costs you. Afterward, as the crowd dispersed and the sun set over Los Angeles, Marcus and I stood in the parking lot next to our matching Camrys. "So," he said, "lunch tomorrow at the barbecue place?" "Actually," I replied, "I was thinking we could check out that new Vietnamese spot near your office. Branch out a little." He grinned. "Look at you, embracing change." "Well, I learned from my son that sometimes you need to evolve while staying true to your roots." As we said goodbye, I thought about the journey we'd taken. From that devastating moment when I overheard those words about being financial dead weight, to standing here as partners, father and son, each respecting what the other brought to the table. The next morning, I arrived early at Donovan Integrated Systems' new shared office space. On my desk was a framed quote that Marcus had given me, words from Elena's journal that neither of us had known existed until we found it while going through her things together. "Success isn't about reaching the highest peak. It's about building something strong enough to weather any storm, with people you trust beside you. Frank knows this. One day, Marcus will too. And when he does, they'll build something amazing together." I smiled, touching the frame gently, then got to work. We had foundations to pour, systems to integrate, bridges to build, not just in concrete and code, but between generations, between ambition and wisdom, between who we were and who we were becoming. Later that day, Marcus stopped by my office with coffee and blueprints for our next project. As we spread them out on my desk, his high-tech tablet next to my pencil-marked drawings, I realized this was exactly what Elena had envisioned. Not just a business partnership, but a relationship rebuilt on mutual respect, shared values, and the hard-earned understanding that sometimes the heaviest weights we carry are the ones that make us stronger. "Ready to get to work?" Marcus asked. I picked up my hard hat, the same one from all those years ago, now worn but still solid. "Always have been, son. Always will be." And together, we began planning what we would build next.